The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
If you love the entrepreneurial journey, how about subscribing and giving us a 5-star review? Wherever you get your podcasts, follow or subscribe and give us a positive review so more entrepreneurs out there don't need to feel alone. Thanks. Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. I've got Martin MacLeod with me, who is the founder of the Financial Health Club. Hi, Martin. How are you today?
Hi, Rebecca. I'm good. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Really well. So I came across you because you have grown your LinkedIn presence by a stupidly large amount in a very short space of time. So that's one thing I want to talk to you about. And I also want to talk to you about financial health checks for people who don't think they can afford to get a financial health check. Let's start with the LinkedIn. Let's get that out the way. How have you built such a massive following? You're up to 15,000 now, which was about several thousand more than when I first noticed you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I had no idea about social media 2 years ago this month when I started my business.
Right.
So I was given a business gateway course on LinkedIn, and I thought like LinkedIn is just basically a job platform. There's no way I'm ever going to use LinkedIn for anything. And I looked at some of the profiles that they shared on that business gateway course, and I thought, right, it seems to have changed a bit from what I remember. So at that point, I had 38 followers. I had never posted on LinkedIn at all. I still didn't post until November 2022 it was.
Right.
So I didn't have the confidence. It's one of those things you don't think anybody really cares about what you've got to say. That's everybody's opinion when they start out. So
Yeah.
I looked at what was happening on LinkedIn. I connected with some people over those first few months, and I thought, these people seem to be disrupting their industries. They seem to be saying things. They seem to be being honest about like the problems in their industries. This is not the LinkedIn I remember, which was just usually corporate blurb and lots of people liking the company corporate message. So I thought this is definitely a place where you can start to provide content that can educate people and maybe entertain people. So that's kind of how I started, was kind of, I wanted to help people understand the things that maybe the financial industry doesn't want you to know, or trying to educate people just in some of the basic concepts of finance that we should have learned in school, but we didn't. And I think by doing that and adding a bit of entertainment with some jokes and me playing guitar and making up songs and trying to connect with Ryan Reynolds and various other things, it's kind of grown.
I love that. I'd not seen you play guitar.
Yeah,
I'll have to look back.
So I've made, I don't know, 30 or 40 songs over the last few years, but I just basically rewrite the lyrics to famous songs and try and maybe get certain people to connect, or just lightly entertain some of the stuff that happens on LinkedIn where people exaggerate stuff. Maybe I'll turn that into a song and people resonate with that. It shows another side of, obviously, I am naturally much more of a creative person. I'm not really a numbers person if you looked at my school report, it would not show any form of maths genius. It would probably show somebody that was better at English and creative. Right. So I wanted to show that, you can do this as well. Finance doesn't need to be bogged down by maths and numbers. It's very much just understanding some basics and then following some consistent approaches to get wealthy, really. And that's kind of how my content probably draws people in that are maybe more creative or possibly people who want to learn in a different way, really.
Yeah, great. How did you end up at Schroders then?
Well, I'd always worked in. I'd been a stockbroker. I'd become a chartered financial planner. So I'd obviously worked my way into, I'd worked for Barclays Wealth, and I'd worked for AXA and Schroders. So I'd worked in many different jobs within the financial industry. And I would often be sitting on calls with clients, and you would get the understanding, even people with a lot of money, they never really understood the basic concepts of what was happening, or they never really understood the difference between ISAs and pensions. And I just felt that there was this huge gap. It existed even in the wealthy, but it must exist more in the other side. And 92% of the UK doesn't get financial advice because they think they don't, or either because they don't have enough, or because they certainly don't have enough to walk into a financial advisor's office and get help because they're just starting. And I thought, I want to help those people. I want to help this next generation. I want to help people that are maybe a similar age to me to understand this stuff and be able to do it for themselves, because technology has allowed that to happen. 20 years ago, you would have had to have a stockbroker in London to buy shares, or 20 years ago, you would need a financial advisor and need assets to start your own pension or start your own ISA. It's so simple now, and people can do this for themselves, and they don't have to pay fees to the financial industry. They can do it themselves, and that's one of the things whereby, just to give you an example, if you set up like an ISA and put 500 quid a month in it, and you do it yourself in a simple investment strategy like an index fund, and you were to instead pay an advisor or a wealth manager 2% per year, after 30 years, you'll be £1 million richer than the person who's doing it through an advisor. So I was like, well, this is definitely a gap that exists, where people business owners that are intelligent, they can back themselves to learn this stuff. I mean, B&Q sell white paint that we can paint our own house. It's up to you if you want an interior designer to do it for you. But most of us are capable of going to B&Q, understanding what paint they want and painting our own house and keeping it consistent. I just felt like if I can help educate, if I can help people understand, and that's what my coaching does, or mentoring, if you want to call it that, puts things together. People feel that they can ask all the financial questions that they've always wanted to ask, but I'm not selling any products. I'm selling them nothing. I'm not asking them to invest any money. So they're literally just getting an understanding of where they're at and where they could go if they do X, Y, or Z.
Brilliant. Because I was going to say how to get around all the regulations. So you're not selling them, you're not advising them, you're showing them where they can go to get stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so essentially you're showing them the types of platforms that are available. You're showing them the types of investments that are the tax efficient wrappers, like your ISAs and your SIPs. And you're showing them how that would grow using models that I was trained to use as a financial advisor. And you're showing them, because a lot of people can't put it together in their mind. Like, if you can't put your house and your pension and your investments and your income and expenses all together. But when I do that in charts and show you, okay, if you put £200 a month in an ISA, this is what you're going to have. Okay, if you do this in your pension, you're going to be able to retire 10 years, 15 years earlier, freedom. I'll do that, or I'll double it. Can I get there sooner? So but sitting down, having somebody on your side that understands finance, but is not interested in how much you have, but they just want you to have more, essentially, means that people relax. They give more information than they possibly would when I was a financial advisor. They give you much. They're more happy to talk honestly and openly about what they've got, about where they want to go, what it is they truly value. They're not worried that you're going to try and sell them something, so they're never ever kind of backing off. They're being much more honest and upfront.
That's great. That's such good support. And are you finding people who wouldn't normally approach an IFA? Are those the people that you are able to reach? Is that turning out to be the case?
Yes, definitely. Because a lot of people have had bad advisors in the past, or they don't trust the financial industry. So or they don't have enough simply to warrant the financial advisor taking them on. So yes, there is lots of people who would previously never have felt comfortable, that through my content, they understand that I'm not selling them anything, and they understand that obviously that I know what I'm talking about, which you build up through years of content and years of commenting and building up trust on a platform like LinkedIn, and then people will come to you naturally for help. And I've created like a ultimate beginners investing course, which I present live for 6 weeks, which is to give people access that are maybe younger as well. So it's aimed at a lower price point, and it enables lots more people to get involved. So I've had 21-year-olds signing up on that maybe aren't at that age where they need help with assets and they don't need to put the jigsaw together because they haven't created all the pieces yet, but they definitely will change their life if they apply these principles and understand the stock market, which I didn't have a clue about when I was 21. So it would totally change their lives completely if they start this at 21. It would be, the compound interest will be crazy by the time they get to 30, 40, 50.
It's the compound interest that when you talk compound interest in maths at school, people are like, yeah, blah 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 blah. But then when you apply it to savings,
Yeah.
and like you say, with a tax efficient wrapper like an ISA around it, you watch those numbers magically just go up and up and up. And it doesn't take a lot to start with, does it? At 21, that's the time. Even younger, start as young as you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A few £100 a month or even less, it would amaze you how much that will become in 20 or 30 years time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that frustrates me is that Albert Einstein called investment compounding the eighth wonder of the world, effectively. And it's the only thing that Einstein said that we didn't study at school. We studied everything else, which none of us would ever apply again. And I think that's where I would love to see some form of lifestyle maths brought into schools instead of complex maths that 99% of us will never use again. Can we please have lifestyle maths where it's like understanding how a mortgage works, or understanding how like APR works on credit cards, or understanding like things that we will actually definitely come across 100% after we leave school. Can we understand investment compounding? Can we understand how ISAs work? Can we understand that stuff so that they're not alien concepts when we leave school? Because I find that even middle-aged people, they're alien concepts to people because we just haven't had the education there, or the basic education to understand a lot of that stuff. And it's kind of pivotal to building wealth easily as being able to utilize some of these wrappers.
Yeah, and even people on starting out on low incomes, building their careers, can put something aside, even if it's a tenner a week or something like that, to help them get into the habit of saving, and they can do it in an efficient way. And like you say, if they're not paying commissions to anybody else, it makes it well worthwhile. And as you grow and develop, you can just add a little bit more and a little bit more, and it adds up so much, definitely. So people are looking for financial freedom.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're 45, 50 and you've not really done anything about it, what can you do now?
I think that's the mistake a lot of people make, is look, a lot of my clients will naturally be in their 40s, and they think that after working with me, they all say the same thing: I wish I'd done this 10 or 20 years ago. But it's still not anywhere near too late, because I think what people vastly underestimate is this idea that, oh, it's too late for me now. But they forget that the longevity is currently mid-80s in the UK. It'll be close to 120 years' time. Medical technology and advancements might mean that pushes out beyond 100 for people at 40. Now, if you've only been working for 20 years, you've got potentially 40 or 50 years of an investment horizon ahead of you. If you're putting a small amount in now, you might be able to compound money at ridiculous growth, especially if, now that the world's changed, people, I think, will naturally work while they're older. Potentially, like, for example, I have no desire to retire, but then that's because I've always modeled I've always loved people like Warren Buffett that's still like picking shares at 95. And you wonder if he had just bought a desert island, which he easily could have done at 55, would he still be alive? Or would he still be full of passion and getting up every morning with real, a real passion to change and pick an investment that might change the world? I think that's the thing that drives people, is that purpose, isn't it? So I think that the word retirement, I've never really liked that word, and I think it will change, because I think people naturally will want to work differently. As one person said to me, which I think is so true, accountants don't retire because they hate accounting. Accountants retire because they want to go and play golf in Spain, or they want to go and like lie on the beach in Australia. But if you can do both, if you can do both, then why would you necessarily want to give up everything you do? So maybe people will have they will be able to find freedom a lot quicker, because they might only need to build up a certain pot, which is in the background, while they do half of the job they do now, or a quarter of the job they do now. And I think that's what's going to be important. Yes, there'll be people in certain industries that will want to completely retire, and that's fair enough. But I think there'll be this new concept of almost like a phased or a semi-retirement for a lot of people.
I totally agree. I'm a bit like you. Most of our stuff now is online, and I have a few clients in real life. But I can see a time where, I'm in the Mediterranean I'm spending most of my time doing whatever I'm doing out there in the med, probably swimming and reading and what have you. But then I'll still have some work. All our coaches are all over the world, and we work with them, and it's all online. So you're absolutely right. It's really interesting. One of the blue zones in Japan, they have this little system called Ikigai, and they don't have a word for retirement. And they live a really long, healthy life because they still do a little bit of work, they do a little bit of gardening, a little bit of socializing, a little bit of everything, but it's that purpose and that work that keeps them young and fit and healthy. And unless you're in a really heavy duty manual job where your body just gives up, the sort of thing that we do, you can keep going for quite a long time, definitely. Thanks for listening, everybody. Did you know at TriCrest, we've built a kick-ass culture, coach and consultant program. So if you're a business coach or consultant and you're looking for something new, add to your toolbox, or even escape the 9 to 5, join us at our next event. Links in the information on the podcast. See you there. So what's your biggest success story from kind of somebody going, oh, I've got nothing, to actually, I've got a bit of a cushion now, a bit of a pot?
Yeah, no, there's been lots of clients that I started working with that started investing straight away 2 years ago. So, they've probably made 30% gains from what they have started to put. But the main thing is that they've actually started to invest. Yeah. So not only the gains that they've made, but obviously the fact that they have started to invest on a regular basis. So they're taking their money from, they may have businesses themselves, but you want your personal finances to be separate from the business finances. You don't know what's going to happen to your business. Yeah. Obviously, you hope it's going to be tremendously successful, but you want to have that private wealth outside that. So by people who perhaps were in their 40s, had never invested before, didn't understand the stock market, didn't understand how to invest, they're able to easily apply that and invest each month. Their understanding of what they're going to have in the future, they now understand what they can expect 15, 20 years from now if they do these consistent actions, and they want to do it for their family. I mean, a lot of these people they have probably been through the time where they've bought a house, they've maybe raised some kids, it's been all very hectic, and now they're at an age where they think, I now need to think about how I'm going to build this future for my family, as in how am I going to make the money that I work hard to earn work harder for me. A lot of people make the mistake, as I always say, they put the money in a bank account, and unfortunately, like as I say to people, if you put money in a bank account at 1% growth, it takes 72 years to double. And I think that's not educated to people because they don't understand the maths behind it. So, but if you do invest in the stock market, it should double every 6 or 7 years, but then that doubles again and doubles again. So by the time you get to 72 years, the person who's invested in the stock market clearly would be enormously richer. They would have millions, and the person who invested in cash would have hundreds of thousands. So that simple change that the person next door to you is doing, you're working the same job, you might have the same car, you might have the same house, but they're getting fabulously wealthy and you're not, because of some simple mistakes. And it's understanding how to be a bit smarter with your money, how you can do it easily, understanding the difference as well, because sometimes it's the first time people have really understood the difference. And I think that comes from also the banking industry in itself not being educated. I mean, like I've been in banks myself where people say, do you want to move some cash into a cash ISA? Making 1%, and they're not educated, or they'll say 2%, and you'll say, well, inflation's 3% just now.
Yeah, so I'm actually losing.
Yeah. But they'll look at you with a blank face and think, and it's clear that they've not even been educated on inflation versus, the returns on your money. So it's important to sit down. As I always say, it's literally like taking your money on a date. You're sitting down, you're opening up and saying, right, okay, this is where I am. How can I? This is what I've done so far. What can I do now that can change it? And also, what's been great is a lot of the clients that I've worked with, I've actually had their kids sitting in calls. Like my 17-year-old, my 16-year-old wants to sit in. I've had one client where their son has signed up to my investment beginners course, 21, first job. That's what you want, is you want that to, you want the kids to get involved. You want the next generation where it will really matter, because that next generation will be fabulously wealthy if they do simple things that weren't open to our generation, not in terms of knowledge wasn't being given by people on social media, but also that it wasn't as easily accessible. You needed money back then to open an ISA. You needed to have a stockbroker to get shares. Now you can do these things yourself with the click of a button. There is a minimum fees. I think the minimum platforms, like regulars, are usually like £25 a month, or I mean that's just ridiculous. Compared to when it used to be, it would be 500 or 1,000 a month minimum. So it massively created a barrier for people starting working or just in their first job. But the barrier's gone, and it's great to see that everybody can start now.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so if I was a complete novice and I was coming to you, where would I begin? What would I sign up for first, Martin?
Well, I've got kind of like three main things that I do.
Okay.
I've got my ultimate beginners course, which is great for which is a 6-week course delivered live by me, where you have access to me for 6 weeks.
Okay.
That's is £400 and offers the ability for lots of people to get involved, and there's like payment plans with that with Klarna. It gives lots of people access. And then I have my one-to-one coaching, which is a deep dive in your finances. And then I work with lots of clients over 3 months, which is doing a deep dive in your finances, looking at models of your current situation, your future, but then a real deep dive into, okay, this is some of the things that you've not learned about money that you need to track forever. Some of the financial numbers that you need to know about, like I always use the example, if you stopped anybody like in the high street in Edinburgh or Glasgow and just said, what's your height, what's your weight, what's your shoe size, how many steps have you done today, how many calories should you eat? Everybody knows them off by heart, but they don't know, like, how do you calculate your net worth? No idea. What's the investment return you should be getting? How much should you be saving each month from your wages? No idea. What's your savings rate? Zero. Like, nobody would have a clue. So understanding these things and then building that out to understanding investments and the different types of investments. Once I've done that with clients over that 3 months, they feel really empowered to do it themselves. And it's not like they won't come back and ask the odd question, but they definitely feel like they're in a place where they suddenly, as they all say, God, I wish somebody had taught me this 20 years ago. Yeah. But I'm the same. I was saying, oh, I wish somebody had taught me it when I was 21. It's the same thing. I famously made lots of mistakes when I was younger with, taking credit cards, giving away my first pension to go on a boys' holiday to Ayia Napa.
Did you?
So all these kind of things that are just like crazy looking back on them. But at the time, nobody sat you down and told you that this was a ridiculous mistake to make.
Yeah, that's so funny. I want to go back really quickly because our time's nearly up, but I want to go back really quickly to separating the business from your personal finances. I coach a lot of business leaders who own their businesses, and I'm forever saying to them, will you, for God's sake, start putting money into a pension, a private pension, or at least have an ISA, or pull money out of the business that's just for you, because so many of them rely on selling the business in the end. But most of the businesses, because they're owned by the owner, aren't worth as much as they think they're worth.
Yeah.
And they end up after slogging the guts out for 30, sometimes 40 years, and they go, is that it? Is that it? But I've sacrificed all of that. I'm like, you need to put money away for you. Yeah, carry on, Martin. Go on.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think that's the biggest problem. As you say, a lot of businesses are actually owner dependent, and it's the owner who has actually built the clientele who will disappear the day that they sell the business or move on. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to sell the business for this, or I'm going to sell the business for that. Now, I always use the example, I'm sure the owners of Blockbuster Video probably had an exit plan, which was very much like, we're going to retire as billionaires at some point in the future. But unfortunately, the world moves quite quickly, and technology, or the advent of something technological, can destroy even some of the greatest businesses. There's nobody would have believed that would happen to certain companies. I think if we were having this conversation 20 years ago, that the likes of Debenhams and the super dries of this day would suddenly disappear, or that for example, a big company like Carillion would go under, or some of these large institutions. You wouldn't believe it, but it's amazing how either through bad management or through a change in the world, how everything can change. So if you've got your personal finances separate from that, yes, the business may hit problems, the business may no longer be viable, but you will have created large wealth through paying into pensions or investments, or understanding how to build your wealth for your family. As I always say to clients, you need to get the focus on paying yourself first. If you're working really hard, you must be getting your family richer. You don't want to be taking that money out and spending it on things that you don't need. You need to be thinking about being smart and thinking, right, okay, how can I make my family richer with all the money that I'm making, so that they're protected forever, regardless of what happens to my business?
Totally agree. Sound advice. Bit like you with my first business, I made all the classic mistakes. I bought the flash car. I spent loads of money. I did put some away in a pension, but looking back now, it's like, I should have put the money I spent on the car into my pension. Only did it once and have corrected that mistake, which is, thank God. So I do have a decent pension and savings and investments, which is great. But I absolutely encourage everybody to get in touch with you and find out more. I think it's so important. The other thing for business owners as well, though, Martin, is if you're personally financially okay, it takes the pressure off the business. It reduces your stress levels massively, because even if the business goes belly up, you're like, I'm still okay. I can still survive. So
that's true, and it takes the pressure off having to take money out of the business, because you've got plenty of personal money. So if you have a bad 6 months in the business, maybe you can live off your investments, or maybe you can live off money that you've saved up as emergency funds, and that's what that's what's key, is making sure that you get that balance.
Definitely. Where are you taking your business, Martin? Where's it heading?
It's a very good question. I want to definitely, and I have had the opportunity to work with businesses where I'll do talks to lots of their staff, and that's been brilliant for raising awareness. So I definitely want to do more of that, where I'm doing helping lots of people at the same time. In my courses, I'm going to develop another course which is going to focus much more on how to pick shares in the stock market, which is kind of my background. And because a lot of people naturally just go onto YouTube and start to believe their friends in the pub, and I just want to give people a bit more education, a bit more help in a starting place. But ultimately helping a lot more people and reaching that 92% that need help. That is a massive number. And it's
a scary number.
It's a scary number of people in the UK that need financial help. So I'm going to try and target as much of that 92% as possible, and help them by being on their side and wanting them to make more money without paying too much in fees to get there.
Brilliant. And where can people find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, which I'm usually posting each day, or my website is financialhealthclub.co.uk.
Brilliant.
And I am on TikTok as well, but I'm not as I haven't really figured out TikTok yet.
No, me
I think
neither.
it's possibly the younger generation, but LinkedIn I'm comfortable with, and I understand how it works and the strategies behind it, but maybe not so much with TikTok.
No, same here. Don't blame you. Brilliant. If your business had a personality or a character, Martin, either who would it be or how would you describe it?
I think my business, if it was a character, it's a very good question. Character. Definitely somebody that's on your side and trying to help you, rather than somebody that's can you think of anybody that would be on my side?
I'm thinking Yoda.
Yeah, well, that's it. I'm a massive Star Wars fan, so definitely, I would definitely be like Obi-Wan Kenobi, somebody who is definitely 100% on your side and is going to use the financial force to help you. So Obi-Wan Kenobi. Let's go with that.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And one last thing about LinkedIn, I'm going to circle back to that. I hate that phrase. Why did I use it? I'm going to go back to that. And that is your the way you've gathered the 15,000 followers in 2 years, I'm going to recap this for anybody out there. You've posted regularly and consistency, and you've done something different. You've been unusual. You've dared to be different. Have you had any backlash for that, or has it just been generally positive?
Generally positive. You get a bit of backlash, obviously, because
Right.
there's lots of financial people that obviously are not creative, or they're not in any way, they don't understand how to be creative or put their point across in a fun way. So you get the odd person, but mostly it's positive. And
Good.
by showing that other side of your personality, you're showing the creative guitar playing, musical type of person that you are normal and fun to work with. You're not a finance geek that's going to bore them with numbers. So I think it's important to show those different parts of your personality, or that you are somebody who can laugh at themselves and have a joke. And I think that's key, really, to because ultimately LinkedIn is about like knowing and liking and trusting. And at first it takes months. You don't get clients at first because nobody knows you. Then they're not sure if they like you. Then you find a community, and then they start to trust your ability to talk about what you're supposed to be good at. And then at that point, they will then come to you and seek your help.
Brilliant. Great advice. Thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck, and let's reduce that 92%.
92%, yeah.
Let's get that 92% down so that more people can create more wealth for themselves. That's the way forward.
The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass, where we